Go.
Hey everybody, welcome back to our channel. Welcome back to Comic Edition. Malcolm here.
I'm Lindsay, and today we are on episode 5 of Office Hours. Malcolm, I am so excited to finally be back in the office with you. I've missed you, my friend.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we had content from Marvel and a long time since we recorded. So I'm very happy to be back because we're back. We're official.
Yeah, we are. I feel like the only thing we didn't talk about was really Secret Invasion, and I am fine with that. But Malcolm and I have talked before. We are teachers here at a university, and so as Marvel's been on vacation, so have we for summer break. Feels really good to have a reason to come into the office and do a little homework today, wouldn't you say?
I would say do a little research and present it to our audience.
Yes,
Welcome.
that's right.
Yeah. So what we want to do today is we want to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine because that's what this week so far is about. Because Friday is going to be a big day for us as well.
Yeah.
News coming out, but we cover the movies and do theories. So this Friday we have Deadpool and Wolverine, and we figured let's hop on and talk about it.
Yeah, no, and today is actually the international premiere of Deadpool as well. So later tonight, there'll be spoilers all over the internet, but for right now, we are spoiler free.
Yes.
Theoretically
For
spoiler
the
free.
most part. But
Yeah.
as soon as the stuff comes out, I'm looking for it. I'm
Oh,
not.
yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm a bad person. I'm going to look at spoilers this time.
I understand that. See, for me, when Multiverse of Madness came out, I made the mistake of being on Twitter, and I literally, while in the restroom, got to see the entire scene of John Krasinski and Professor X, and that is something I don't want taken from me with this film because I think we all know it's going to be a spoiler fest, and we're going to have a lot of really cool things go down in this film.
Yeah, so true. So let's talk about this film.
Yeah, where do
Uh,
you want to start?
I want to start with the TVA. So they've
Ooh,
released a few trailers
yeah.
recently, one of which showed us Hunter B-15.
I know. I,
Yeah.
I
So,
almost couldn't believe it when I saw her on my screen. I'm so happy she's going to be on the big screen, though.
so what do we think? How are they going to approach the TVA? So let's say someone hasn't seen Loki. How are you going to introduce the TVA?
So I think that's one of the really hard points that the show, or that this movie rather, is going to have to grapple with, is that they're talking to a general audience as well as people that have seen all of Loki. And so I think we are going to have a scene that very directly explains to us what's going on, how time operates at a very foundational level. And part of that, I think, is going to mean maybe a Loki cameo. I think we could get this really fun scene, maybe. I have it in my head where I can see Tom Hiddleston and Ryan Reynolds in the same room, kind of interacting with each other, since they're both at that point breaking the third wall to some degree. But yeah, I think we're going to get a very direct scene, maybe with Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds, or excuse me, Deadpool and Loki, where they specifically talk about like, you're in charge? What do you mean? What do you think?
I don't know that we can get that scene because I don't know that Loki can leave his throne.
No, I don't think he's leaving. I think Deadpool's going to him
Going
at
to
some
him,
point.
that's the
Mm-hmm.
thing. I think it would be more likely that we get a Miss Minutes intro video. Welcome to the
Mm-hmm.
TVA. Like we got in the first episode of Loki.
Yeah.
Uh, I think they would give us something like that because technically Miss Minutes is a big cameo. People are into Miss Minutes. That's a thing. And she's been reset. So,
Yeah.
she's regained some of her sanity and she's good to go, right?
Well, it's
Uh,
possible. I know that one scene that we see Hunter B-15 in there, what she said specifically is like, I'm going to show you something huge. What if that huge thing is that tree time branch, how it operates?
yeah.
Because our Merc with a mouth, he can break that third wall. He could go into that world and actually conversate with Loki, where most of our characters can't. And you and I both know that before we get to Secret Wars and before we get to all of these like big crossovers, we're going to have to revisit that. We're going to have to understand how Loki is there. And I remember very early in the rumor mill, we had conversation about Loki taking the place of Thor, or excuse me, of Deadpool taking the place of Thor, taking the place of Loki in some of those scenes from Infinity War. And so I think that could be a really, really interesting place for maybe some dialogue about, wait, you're Loki's brother or you're Thor's brother, as that relationship kind of unfolds in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see Tom Hiddleston in the movie, clearly, right? I want to see Loki as much as possible. It's my favorite character. However, um, I think that's something we might not get. Unfortunately, I do at least want an allusion to Loki. Like, let's acknowledge that those two seasons happened. I think they're
Yeah.
important. You're going to introduce the TVA, and Loki is a big part of the MCU's version of the TVA.
Yeah.
And how you do that and introduce us to, I thought it might be possible that they would skip out on some of that stuff when we only saw Paradox and TVA
Mhm.
agents. But now that we've seen Hunter B-15, I'm like, they're not ignoring the two
Yeah.
seasons that
Well,
we
I
had.
love that you bring up Paradox because something really interesting as well is if we remember at the end of Loki season two, we
Mhm.
saw General Dox and like a lot of her agents leaving the TVA or not being present on kind of a side quest, side mission. And I think it's possible that the version of the TVA we see with Paradox anyway might be part of that rogue faction. And part of this comes from when you look at the trailers, we have different versions of the TVA agents. At times they have orange on them, at times they're all in black. And maybe they're different jobs, maybe they're different roles, and it means nothing. Or perhaps we're going to see a couple different versions of the TVA in Loki. Just like how, we see versions of it when we're in the void. We saw the scene with Ravonna, or we see the floor for all time always. And so we know there's been different versions of this before. And it would make sense that we would see in a variant movie variants of the TVA as well. Which kind of brings me to my next question for you, if you don't mind.
Okay.
When we're looking at this movie and we're expecting so many variants in it, what's going to happen? One, in the void, are we going to be seeing variants of Loki? But I would say more importantly, what's going on with this Wolverine? Is it just one version of Wolverine? Are we following a bunch of them? How do we think that's going to operate?
Yeah, I think by all indications, everything that I've seen online and read, we're going to see several versions of
Mhm.
Wolverine, and he will settle on the one he finds in the bar. Clearly, that's our Wolverine that we're going to get
Yeah.
through the rest of the movie, dealing with alcoholism and trying to drown his sorrows, etc. So, yes, I do think we get multiple Wolverines. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much like a foregone conclusion. Um, but my question to you, unless you have some thoughts on that particular
Well,
thing,
I'm curious, like, why this Wolverine though? If you say
that's
there's
my
going to be
question
the
to you.
whole, all the variants,
Yeah.
why are we following this one? What do you
Yeah.
think?
All right. So here's it's theory time. Ready? I've been racking my brain trying to figure out why this Wolverine would be special. I looked through his power set, like what does Wolverine have? Does he have a special ability? And the only thing I could think of is House of M. I just keep coming back to House of M, which is a
Hmm.
comic run in which a few things happen. The first of which is Wanda basically alters reality, takes away people's powers. Nobody
Hmm.
remembers who they were. Scott is married to Emma Frost. But the only two people, and I'm just going to say one person, there are two people who remember what happened, but one person is Wolverine for some reason
Hmm.
remembers.
Interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and they confront Wanda, and eventually, I'm assuming this is the same comic run. Not assuming, but I'm believing. I'm trying to recall. But at the end of this comic run, we get the No More Mutants thing, where
Right.
Wanda wipes out, the mutants.
Right.
Uh, Perhaps here's just a theory. This particular Wolverine is the one that saved that reality. So this is the Wolverine from
Hmm.
the House of M comic run. And in order to save his reality, because he doesn't believe he's a hero, he has to eliminate Wanda. And if you have to
Yeah.
kill someone to save everyone, even though you did the right thing, perhaps in an ethical sense, uh, putting the many versus the one, you still feel terrible. You don't feel like a hero, right? You still
Mm.
feel like you let everyone down. But he says he let down his whole universe. That's all I could come up with is this House of M approach to it. But I don't know. I
Well,
don't
I think
know.
one of the really interesting points you hit there is what it means to be a hero. And even when we talk about things like Infinity War or Endgame, there's really good arguments that the Avengers were actually acting pretty villainous, right? The actions that they're taking, like the Earth was healing, but the fact that they missed somebody, that this selfish desire of like, I miss my friends, causes them to undergo potentially more chaos, potentially even worse outcomes for their Earth by messing with the timeline is a really dangerous thing and fair to question, whether or not that is heroic or not. And so when we talk about, Wolverine kind of making those same way, weighing out the same things to save one versus many, or who to save, how to save a life, I think that's a really interesting through line that might certainly get explored in this film. I know we get a
And
scene in the trailers where we see him with what we suppose are the various gravestones of former X-Men. So
yeah.
maybe it's that he had to let the rest of the X-Men die to save everyone else. Similar to how the Avengers couldn't let the rest of their Avengers die. They had to bring everybody back.
And I don't think we have to go that far back for a
Right.
comparison. So let's talk about point one and now point two. We talked about the TVA and how many
Right.
parallels are there to Loki's decision
Ooh.
Loki had to make and He Who Remains? Is He Who Remains a villain? We just got
Mhm.
together watch the end of Quantumania, which I know everybody loves so much. But that ending scene is so wonderful because he's like, well, did I do the right thing or did I
Yeah.
destine anybody to die?
Yeah.
And that question keeps coming up in Loki. It's he who remains. Is he evil? Is he saving us from something? Loki, do
Right.
I kill Sylvie to save all of time? What do I do?
Right.
Um,
Well, and
and
we
then,
had noticed something really interesting that I think merits being pointed out during this video during that is that Loki, while it is listed on the timeline order of beginning right after Endgame, if we really think about what that last scene in Loki season 2 was, where they say that they've been monitoring various He Who Remains variants, and there was a run-in on a 616 adjacent realm, that takes us all the way to Quantum Mania, meaning that the events of Loki essentially unfolded in that entire time. And we got a pretty massive list back here. You can't really see it of all of these projects. Oh, I wish it would come into focus of all of these projects that have been going on. All this my handwriting is amazing, but all of these projects going on in the background of Loki. And so since that finale, we really only had three other projects unfold. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we had
Secret
Secret Invasion, and we had one more. I know we were talking about it.
Marvels.
Marvels, the Marvels. And in all three of those, we're starting to set up some team ups. We're starting to see those crossovers. And in the Marvels, very directly, we see an incursion. And so thinking about kind of where we go from that moment, really interesting.
So I don't even know if is that an incursion. I'm very confused for myself what an incursion looks like, or does it have to always
Mm,
look the same? Because we saw the start of one or the product of one in Multiverse of Madness
right.
when to fight Evil Strange with what I think is the
Mhm.
worst fight scene ever with the music notes. But
You're not
uh,
alone in that. You're not alone.
but that was the result of an incursion or an
Right.
incursion in progress, right?
Right. Well, I think the definition that we got at some point in that film is like the realities are folding in on themselves. And so that can probably look like a variety of things as each reality looks very different.
Yeah.
But there's sure there's many stages to it as well. But I believe that we got that specific language in whether it be from Kevin Feige or in the film itself when it comes to what we're seeing at the end, because of that tear in reality as the Earths or the worlds begin to fade on top of each other.
Mm-hmm. So can I transition us into our last
Absolutely.
potpourri point? But maybe an incursion is something we see more explicitly in this film. Maybe an
Yeah.
incursion is what is happening to Deadpool's universe.
Oh,
So
I
maybe,
think 100% that has to be the case.
yeah,
Especially, if we remember what happened at the end of Deadpool 2, is we saw him go back in the timeline and really retcon a lot of moments in Ryan Reynolds' life and in Deadpool's life. And I think that could be a really good jumping off point for why this is happening, right? And how the world is different is that he has already made all of these changes to the flow of time. And now he who remains is not there to protect that or allow that to continue. And it is because of our realization that we had really of that timeline about when he who remains was controlling the timeline versus when it became, Loki's free will world, that makes me wonder if this TVA is part of that TVA under Docs that is kind of a rogue TVA allowing this to happen. Because why are they recruiting him? Why are they bringing him into the fold? So I think we're going to pick up right there, right after, certainly time has passed. But I think that him changing the timeline in the way that he does with Cable's time travel device is going to be one of the things that really propels us through this movie as a cause.
so do you think that he's a prisoner or invited guest of the TVA?
Well, I think it's important to realize that you can be both, right? You can be, presented as here's your purpose. You're invited. We need you here. But in reality, you can't leave. I know we just watched the Boys finale this week, and think about the way Ryan was brought into that room, kind of at the end with Butcher, as he was brought in, invited to say, "Please stay," but Grace wasn't going to let him leave. And I think that's very possible with Deadpool as well, is that they needed him here, they wanted him here, and maybe he himself will go rogue or realize what is going on around him and not want to participate in it because it realizes it's going to hurt his world.
Let,
I know
let me
that maybe wasn't necessarily an answer to your question, but it's something I'm very excited
let
about.
me clarify the question then. So do you think he's a criminal of the TVA, as in he committed a crime? So crimes against the sacred timeline, or are they even doing that anymore? Right.
Again, the way that I view this movie is that we're going to have multiple TVAs. I think that the TVA that he's going to be recruited to with Paradox wants him to cause incursions. I think they are going to be encouraging him to cause incursions because it will create chaos for the other version of the TVA. It's kind of how I imagine that happening. I don't know exactly the way the politics of that'll work, of course not. But I do think that there are opposite goals between these two TVAs.
Okay. So you think Paradox is one, and then
Yeah.
Hunter B is
Like I
the other.
think Paradox, like in my mind, Paradox's mission is still to protect the sacred timeline, which we know is not really a thing. But I think he's going to be trying to reinstill that the same way that Docs wanted that done. And because of that, I think it makes a lot of sense to send Deadpool on a mission where you have to stop these incursions, destroy these other realities, using him as your weapon. And when Deadpool realizes that he's being used as a weapon, he's not going to like that very much. And that could be the scene where we see all those TVA agents get killed, is that he realizes, like, hey, you're using me. I don't need to do this. Free will can exist, or something in that nature. What do you think?
I have no clue. And I love being in this place. I
Yeah.
really do love being in this place. Um, I don't know what his like the plot of the movie. We see Cassandra Nova, and it's like, well, why this particular villain? Why
Yeah.
this particular Wolverine? Is she just so adjacent to Professor X that it makes sense? Or if instead of doing a variant of Professor X, let's get his sister essentially to be in the film. Um, I don't know. And they're all in the void, which is another thing. Like
Supposedly,
they
yeah.
get there. But the one clip we saw of her in the trailer where she has her hands in that machine and
Hmm. I
spaghetti
was hoping you'd bring that up. I was hoping you would bring that up.
Loki, and it's like, well,
Yeah,
what is happening there? Oh, I do have my thing that I want to talk about.
please.
Yeah. Can we transition into that a little bit now?
Transition.
All right. So we're clear. We're talking about the TVA and its existence and why it's in the film. We talked about
Right.
Wolverine and why this particular Wolverine. Not that we had answers, but we talked about it.
Yes.
And then what we think the plot of the movie
Right.
might be. Now, just random things about the film that just like are sticking out to us. So
Yeah.
there is a clip in which Cassandra Nova has her hands in some machine, and the spaghetti strings are moving like season 2, episode 5 and
Right.
6, I think, of Loki, right?
Right. Also,
Where,
like we see in Quantum Mania and the probability storm for
yeah,
the, yeah.
where reality basically is being dismantled,
Right.
essentially. What Lindsay did point out about this particular scene is that we see two colors coming up on both sides of said machine,
Mhm.
red on one side and blue on the other. And I then pointed out that there was a picture circulating, posted by Ryan Reynolds, of a sling ring that had two infinity stones, right? Red and green. So reality and time. And we think maybe that's how they're able to travel from multiverse to multiverse, whatever.
Right.
Uh, and then this particular machine I liken to Cerebro. But if you enhance Cerebro using infinity gems, particularly the space stone and the reality stone, right? That would
Yeah.
be red.
Well, even if it's
Oh,
not the stone, it could be the energy, right? Because we understand we get the stones from the singularities. We did a little deep dive on that, but regardless, we have the space energy from the space stone and energy from the reality
in my
stone.
mind, you plug them into the side, and that energy comes from that particular power
Mhm.
source, right? So if we think about space and reality, so space being I can move from here to there, and
Right.
reality being what is perceived by us,
Right.
we attach that to somebody who has telekinetic powers, then what is she seeing? Who is she seeing it from? Is she looking into the multiverse and seeing possible realities? Is it like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that could be happening there,
Yeah.
but it looks like she's wherever Hunter B-15 was.
Right. No, I pointed that out because we have, if you guys notice, like on the background of that video, there are little tiny squares. And if you like, in the scene with Cassandra Nova, you can see technology that very much looks like the type of technology we see around the TVA throughout Loki. But then specifically in that new clip of Hunter B-15, she has the exact same square tiles behind her, kind of worn out in the same lighting. Very, very likely, or very much so, could be in the same scene, could be in the same building. Which then makes us wonder, why is Cassandra Nova in the TVA? And this is me wondering in this moment, did she maybe cause herself to get pruned because of that moment? Is that like her in the TVA unraveling reality in a way similar to what Loki had done, and then maybe getting pruned or getting sent there?
Maybe.
That could be one of her incursion events. Because that's a really interesting thing. Like, why would she be in the TVA? Why do they have a machine like that? How
Can
does
I
that
just
machine work? Why is she using it? Like my brain nearly
I
breaks
just
with
had a
all of these
thought. I
questions.
just had a thought. All
Yeah.
right, live. Here we are. Uh, so so we have that scene with Hunter B-15 saying, "I want to show you something huge," and then Deadpool responds, but we don't see him respond. What if
What
she was
if that
talking
was
about
to her
him?
before she plugged it in? Is that what you were about to say?
Yeah, what if it
That
was
would be so
her?
cool. So they
Um,
bring her there and then they plug her in, and then that's because she's like clearly very like overjoyous in her face. She's like, whoa, about what's happening. Her eyes are rolled back in her head. Her sister's having a great time. That'd be cool. They're showing her the multiverse.
yeah,
Ooh, I
or
got chills. I got chills.
yeah, like we assume because of the way they presented the trailer that she was
Right.
talking to Deadpool, but she could very well, because that location looks similar, be talking to Cassandra Nova.
Yeah. Oh, and we know Marvel loves to send us down the wrong path. We
Yeah.
know they do.
When you said maybe that's why she got pruned, that's what made me think of it, as if they allowed her to see this thing, whatever this machine is. They allowed her to see it. She puts her hands in it. She starts doing something she's not supposed to. So they
Right.
prune her. And that's how she wants
Right.
to avoid.
I think that's really interesting, especially when we're talking about maybe like why she is the villain that we're really dealing with, or supposed villain that we're really dealing with
Yeah.
in this. I think especially, we know Elias is going to be in this movie. We know we're in the void. We have enough connective tissue that it would make sense to me that she has been in the void this whole time. Especially when we know that the TVA theoretically is not pruning people anymore, or it's not pruning people of this nature anyway, just cause. So what got her to the void? Why is she there? Is something that this movie is going to have to reckon with, at least to some degree. And starting that off, maybe they went to Cassandra Nova for help first, and then she wasn't helpful, and then so they changed it out for Deadpool, another multiversal figure in the
I would
comics.
say it establishes a pattern of behavior. So if they do pull people, because they
Yeah.
took Loki, right? That was a
Yeah,
thing.
which is interesting too that they pull these villains to come help them. We've had Loki, we're for sure going to have Deadpool. Why not put Cassandra Nova into that mix as a powerful figure, which we know she already is, and give her a potential redemption arc? Maybe she won't take it, but that it would make sense for them to take that action because Hunter B-15 has seen a villain change before.
I mean, she could have been pruned initially, like
Mhm.
Sylvie was, for
Yeah,
existing, because that evil version of, they could say, Xavier should not exist.
yeah,
Right? And then she was pulled out of the timeline, which would
yeah.
be the reason why we've never seen her in any of the films or
Right.
anything like that.
Well, in the
She,
comics, it's such a weird way of her existence where she's like in the sewer as like an embryo.
yeah,
And it might make a little more sense for an audience and be a little less controversial if she was just pruned at inception. And then that would explain some motivation as well, as like Xavier got to live her life, she didn't. And we could have some tension around the life she thinks she deserves. Similar to we talk about Loki's glorious purpose forever.
yeah, yeah. And it could be her seeing possibilities for her life. And
Yeah.
she eventually had to be pruned or whatever. So there could be a lot that
God,
happens.
Malcolm, I am so excited for this movie.
Do you have anything you're expecting? Any hot
Yeah,
take?
okay. To wrap this up, then let's go ahead and talk about some of our big predictions, big picture, one shot, call it here so we can say forever. I told you so. I know for me, I think about this movie, I think about cameos. We had an interview with Kevin Feige earlier this week where he was asked, how much is Deadpool going to matter? He said that if Infinity War mattered a 9, if Endgame mattered a 10, Deadpool is going to be an 8. Because
Wow.
of that, I think we have to touch a lot of the MCU projects that we've been working through, and I hope that we see a lot of them from Phase 4. I would love to pick up and see a minute of Shang-Chi. I would love to see Jennifer Walters in the TVA. In the comics, She-Hulk spends a lot of time as a lawyer or as a judge in the TVA. And so to me, this would make a lot of sense to put her in that place, whether it be a variant, whether it be the version we know. I think it's very possible that we pick up in a couple other areas. I would love to pick up on Ravonna. I think that'd be really interesting. We see her in the void. We imagine Elias coming to eat her afterwards, but we don't know that's what's happening. We don't know that she perishes there. Like I said before, I would love to see some Loki variants. I think it's also possible we see Sylvie very specifically, like our Sylvie, maybe working in the TVA in present. And so for me, I think a lot about that. And I know one that's controversial, but I do think we are going to see Taylor Swift in the film. And I don't think they're going to back off from it. I think we're going to get her very quickly as Dazzler. I can't imagine her, sticking around in the MCU, but this, just like how John Krasinski was in Multiverse of Madness, is the perfect place to put her for 30 seconds on screen. It is absolutely in Marvel's best interest to do so, especially if they want huge numbers in weekend 2. You'll get all the Swifties in this country and around the world to go see your film if she's even in it for 30 seconds, even if just one of her songs are in it. They're more likely to turn up, and that's going to get us really great numbers. The question is whether or not she would do it. As somebody who's best friends with Blake Lively, was seen hanging out with Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds and Sean Levy. She was filming in this area. Like, it makes a lot of sense to me that she is going to be in this movie. I hope we're not being baited. One of my best friends here is a Swiftie who has no interest in Marvel, but she's coming with me to see the film soon, and I am so excited about that. So I hope we get that little crossover there. So I'm really just thinking about these cameo fests. Of course, I'm excited to see all of the X-Men that we know from those films as well, but I'm really hoping we start to tie some of the threads of Phase 4 together. And I think Phase 4 and 5 now, but I think it's really possible. And we talked earlier, the last one I'll throw out here is going to be Ant-Man. We know we see his skull, like the giant Ant-Man, but I also think we're going to get Paul Rudd in this film in one capacity or another. Maybe it's Paul Rudd and Ryan Reynolds hanging out. Maybe Paul Rudd and Sean Levy. Sean Levy did an interview on Jimmy Fallon earlier this week where he talked about throughout his acting career and directing career, he's had a really interesting relationship with Paul Rudd. They used to audition for the same roles, and then he was able to cast him in Night at the Museum. And so I think it would be a really great culmination on their friendship and relationship to at least put him in this film for a couple minutes, and it would be a great way to pick up from where Ant-Man left us off. So I hit you with a lot. Hit me with your predictions. What do you think is going to go down in Deadpool this week?
Okay, I'm going out on a limb. I'm not ready to give up Kang.
Okay.
I'm just not prepared to do it. I thought it was conceptually, a great narrative, a way of moving us forward through the multiversal saga. Don't want to let it go. So I'm going to say there is some Kang illusion in this film. Maybe we even get who has been recast as Kang. We haven't really been talking that much for a while. It was a conversation for a while. It has been talked about a little bit, but maybe we get some type of official announcement on Friday. But we see that person and they get to introduce them formally at the convention. So I'm just saying Kang somehow, some way. I don't think you do the TVA without talking about its MCU founder. So here we are.
I like that prediction quite a bit. On that, I am going to ask you a bonus question. What are your predictions for SDCC? What do we think we're getting announced this weekend? Do you think we're getting a Kang? What else?
I think we're getting a Kang. We're going to learn a little bit more about the Fantastic Four, which will be fantastic. What else do we have? I'm ready to see a trailer for Ironheart. If that's the one thing I want to see. We've heard that filming has been wrapped for a while now. Show us some clips. Release a clip online that someone will leak to me, please. And I'm not sure how many clips we're actually going to get because they've given us Agatha. We just got Captain America. Are they going to continue to give us more? But yes, right. Giving us one movie this year. The least you can do.
Yeah.
We've gotten Echo.
Yeah.
Did we get What If this year, or was that last year?
That was last year. It was in the fall or winter.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting about it though is we have gotten trailers. We have a trailer for or a teaser trailer rather for Captain America. We have a trailer for Agatha, and I think those are certainly going to be things we touch on. Like you said, I'm really interested for Fantastic Four. I believe they are filming right now. I wonder if we can get some first look photos. It would really make my heart happy just to even see maybe some semblance of the suits or what these characters might look like. It's a project, of course, we're all very excited for. I'm also really hoping that we get a Shang-Chi 2 announcement. I'm not necessarily hopeful that it'll happen, but I would really, really love that. I love that film. But I think Doctor Strange 3 is going to be pretty inevitable to happen. Or if it doesn't, I'll be really disappointed.
Like, we need to see America. There's so many characters we need to pick up on before you bring everybody back in to whatever Avengers 5 is going to be. And see
well, like we talked about earlier, a lot of the places we've left off since where Loki ended leave us at a team up. At the end of the Marvels, we talk about teaming up as the Young Avengers. At the end of Secret Invasion, we get a cliffhanger that'll lead us into Thunderbolts probably. And then at Guardians of the Galaxy, we get our new Guardians team. And so I think we're going to start really seeing these pieces move into place. And I hope that SDCC on Friday and their subsequent panels after that really help us get that clear understanding. But
because whatever this post-credit scene is will lead us into the next film or show. And then
if there is a post-credit scene. So far, they've been teasing us as if there's none.
They're liars. We already know they lie.
They do lie.
It's
I
straight up
have
life.
trust issues, though. I have
Yes.
trust issues. So we'll see.
Like Agatha, Captain America. We need
Yeah.
to transition. So, all right.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you have any theories, if you agree with what we're saying, leave a comment down below, and we are more than excited to read it. But I hope you all have your tickets, and I'm looking forward to seeing this movie on Thursday at 3 p.m. with you, Malcolm.
All right. Yes. With a big bag of popcorn or something.
Oh, I
Hungry.
can't wait for that popcorn bucket. All right, y'all. Thank you so much.